you feel sad or amused by Johnny Manziel? I kind of feel sad, Caleb. What's the latest thing he said in his very misdirected life as it continues to just kind of stumble along through the ether?
I feel like Johnny Manziel is trying to fake rehab his reputation by doing things that are totally unnecessary. But because look, I understand. I'm just going to say this from the start. I understand quarterbacks who have had demons. I understand there are quarterbacks who didn't work out. They were dealing with psychological issues, whatever. There's a lot of reasons a quarterback can be a bust in the NFL.
More pressure than any position in sports, and it's not close.
Yes, exactly. I think it's disgraceful, though, when you're a bust because you just didn't care and you took the money and called it a day. And Johnny Manziel and Jamarcus Russell are on my pantheon of disgraceful human beings for that.
Can I explain? And I know the Johnny Manziel story because he was a bigger story than I do Jamarcus Russell. Why there might be a difference between the two. First, can you tell me the latest of what Johnny Manziel said?
Yes, Johnny Manziel decided to take a fake moral stance that's not going to make any waves whatsoever, where he said he's not going to take part in any Heisman Trophy ceremonies whatsoever until Reggie Bush gets his Heisman Trophy back.
Okay, first, well, darn. As a Heisman voter, I can cover that. And I can tell you of all the Heisman winners, he would be about 60th on the list of those that are still living that I would want to visit with. So it wouldn't be a big deal if he weren't at that at all. He can think it's a big deal, but it's not. And Johnny Manziel, I believe could have been a very good quarterback in the NFL, especially with the way it's going. I believe he could have been on the front end of something special. But he's not. And instead, he decided to just really party his life away once he got the contract. I think it just goes to show you really don't know who a lot of these people are. And I think Texas A&M to some extent allowed this to happen. But I don't believe Johnny Manziel was ever going to put himself in a best position, Caleb, to be an elite NFL quarterback. I just don't believe it's going to happen. I believe he liked the money. A couple of million is enough for some people to be happy and think I won life. A couple of million is nothing for Peyton Manning because he wants to be in the Hall of Fame. Those are the difference between the two mindsets, Caleb. And a couple of million was enough for Johnny Manziel to say, hey, everybody, I won life. I am going to now officially enjoy my life. That's what he did.
Yeah, and let's talk about the infrastructure of college football and what I do somewhat blame Texas A&M and Kevin Sumlin, because I do think this. I think because Texas A&M was new to the SEC, they were really worried about getting wrecked coming from the Big 12, and they realized they had this one special talent that could save them from getting wrecked to build the program. So I think they forgave so much more than they should have because of that situation. Like, I think if they had stayed in the Big 12, they probably would have had more discipline for Johnny Manziel. But because of the pressure of coming to the SEC and knowing what they had to do, I think they allowed a lot of stuff to slide. The reason this is so annoying for Johnny Manziel to take this stance, and it's so fake, Johnny Manziel knows that he's not going to be the guy to make a wave on this. So he's just pretending to be the new moral guy. Do I think it's stupid that Reggie Bush lost his Heisman? Yes. No, I don't think he should have won the Heisman that year. Vince Young should have won the Heisman that year.
But let me go ahead and end the Heisman talk. They're still displaying O.J. Simpson's Heisman at Southern California. Period. End of discussion. They can melt Reggie Bush's, as far as I care, as long as they have OJ's up. That is idiotic.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's where I was getting to. Now, I'm not saying Johnny Manziel is the O.J. Simpson of this, but, like, in terms of Heisman winners that could make waves, Johnny Manziel, like you just said, is not in the top 15. As a matter of fact, don't you think that you know this? The Heisman ceremony people, because I don't think they include O.J. in anything, they have this kind of integrity thing, even though they voted for a lot of bad people to win the Heisman in the past, but they like kind of stand-up guys to be the representatives, don't they? So don't you think they're secretly like, good, don't come to any of our stuff anymore?
Yeah, I think they're definitely like that, because what are they going to ask him about? They're going to ask him about signing stuff. They're going to ask him about NIL. Listen, the bottom line is if they change the speed limit on I-75 North, and I'm not afraid to tell everybody, I got my first speeding ticket in like 20 years last Friday. If they change the speed limit, they're not going to come back to me and say, here is your $220 back, Caleb. That's not happening. You can't retroactively change decisions in this NIL world. I ask you, is there any player that you think a fan base is just really ashamed of, that they just kind of wish that they weren't around? The only one I could come up with, and I don't want this to sound like a shot because I actually like him as an individual, would be Arian Foster, because I think we a good bit of Tennessee's fan base is Christian. They didn't like the fact that he was so open about the atheism. But I think the other thing that really bothered them, some of them, was the Taco Bell thing, which was a lie. To say that he never had the money to go to Taco Bell is just not true, Caleb. It's not.
I think
true.
I think you're right, but Arian Foster did make amends with Tennessee with the Alabama game a couple of years ago.
True.
I
Yeah.
think
How many years ago, just out of curiosity?
2022, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yeah. How was Tennessee doing on the field at that time?
Yeah, you're right. They were balling. That's a good point.
So how do you think former players viewed that?
They were probably annoyed that he waited till then.
You show up when you're doing good? Is that what you do?
That's a fair point. I think I still don't think I don't think LSU fans will ever welcome Jamarcus Russell back. I think he embarrasses them too much.
Okay, so I was going to say that, and this may be a reach. Jamarcus Russell to me was very Manziel-like in that he thought he had won life when he got the first contract, right? But I do think, not knowing the Jamarcus Russell story, I think Manziel is troubled beyond what we know at this point.
Well, Manziel...
There now is a story about whether or not he came up for money or not. I don't even know.
Oh, no, he faked the whole background story of that So, no, he faked that whole narrative so he could justify how he had all this money to keep himself eligible for the NCAA. Now, Jamarcus Russell, so the problem with Johnny Manziel that's so tricky is that Johnny Manziel took Texas A&M to heights it's never been at before. Whereas Jamarcus Russell is a forgettable throwaway. And it's funny, we bring in Reggie Bush. It's not like other historically USC is running back U, isn't it? Like they've produced.
Yes.
So Reggie Bush is just another one of the guys. But to be fair, Reggie Bush was the guy that resurrected USC it was a disaster of a program in the 90s. So I'm fine with the idea of him getting his Heisman back if you want to take this stance. I don't think Johnny Manziel's genuine in this, though. I think this is Johnny Manziel trying to go on a character rehabilitation tour to make people like him.
I completely agree. I'm with Caleb 110%. So is there any player that Tennessee's fan base would just soon not? I mean, you could go Aaron Hernandez at Florida. If somehow Aaron Hernandez went to Miami instead of Florida, I'm sure Florida fans would be okay with that. You could go, there are other guys that are just dastardly.
Kellen Winslow at Miami, since you just named him.
Yeah, Kellen Winslow at Miami. I mean,
but wait, we got to be fair. We just said Arian Foster. We cannot put Arian Foster or even Johnny Manziel or even Jamarcus Russell in the same sentence as Aaron Hernandez and Kellen Winslow. We're talking about a rapist and a murderer. OJ's a double murderer. I mean, there's layers of like.
But there are Tennessee players that have gone to do things as bad as Aaron Hernandez. However, there was at least some lack of culpability because listen, drunk driving's your fault. Don't get me wrong, but still, that's not purposefully taking someone's life like Aaron Hernandez. Can we agree that there's a difference there?
There's a difference. There's a reason that the courts charge for manslaughter and murder and double murder.
Okay, so I don't want to sound like I'm downplaying Leonard Little's. There was also a situation in which a former Tennessee quarterback, and I don't really want to get into his name, but he had a serious problem with drug issues, and it seemed like it was just a matter of time until he would pass away. And he was incredibly talented. You know who I'm talking about, I'm sure.
That wasn't his fault. That was college football's fault because they got him hooked on those.
That's very fair. So I just don't know if there now, like Jansen Jackson. I mean, he killed a man. So
yes,
he would be in
Tennessee's
the Aaron
never
Hernandez.
Miss him.
Right, he would be in the Aaron Hernandez category, but I don't think like the average college football fan knows that Jansen Jackson even played at Tennessee, right? So there's not a guy that's tied there. Like if you're USC, you would love, in retrospect, for the Juice to have played at UCLA. I mean, I mean, in retrospect, you don't have to have that damn trophy there all the time that people are looking at going, well, you still got that. And you would love to get rid of Mike Vick if you're at Vautech. I'm not talking about the play on the field, but you love to just erase yourself of that memory. Johnny Manziel, too. But here's the thing about Johnny Manziel that's so difficult, Caleb. And I'll just say this and throw it out there. I talked to guys who covered Archie Manning, and they said that Johnny Manziel was the best playmaker since Archie Manning. And since then, they thought he was that great of a playmaker with that little around him. So you're talking about a transcendental, almost a Pete Maravich type aura around him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was huge. The difference is like Pete Maravich and Archie Manning had personalities, but were also disciplined in their craft, and Johnny Manziel wasn't. But the hard part with Johnny Manziel, and you brought up Michael Vick, where they're different from OJ. One, whatever we want to say about Michael Vick, at least he's remorseful for what he did. He does seem like he's trying to clean up his life and do right. Amen. And OJ does not care that he got away with double murder. I mean, that's, I think, what's still so sick about him is like he does not care. And he's so proud that he got off.
I agree with you. I will never forgive Mike Vick because I'm an animal guy. But
I'm an animal.
But I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm an animal lover, too.
I'll tell you about a quick joke I did. They had a silent auction one time, and one of Mike Vick's jerseys was there, and I signed it as PACA, the group that looks out for animal welfare. And I
did not know that. That's really funny. Here's where I wanted to get with Manziel and Mike Vick, though, and it goes back to the other point. Manziel and Mike Vick actually uplifted college football programs they reset expectations for those programs that weren't there before. OJ didn't do that for USC. USC was already great. Another one, a great one, Lawrence Phillips at Nebraska. Ooh. He didn't really reset expectations for Nebraska, but Nebraska don't win those two titles without him in the 90s with Tommy Frazier. I mean, he was more valuable than Frazier.
At least I'm nitpicking a little bit on your point, but at least Phillips was kind of an empathetic figure.
You think he just had massive mental issues?
I think he had massive mental issues. That's not to say Hernandez or Jackson didn't, but just in a different way. And they harmed other people. I don't know. Lawrence Phillips, I've always thought, and God rest his soul, I don't want to joke around too much, but if you always imagine playing Lawrence Phillips in backyard football, which he did with a group of guys that were in their teenage years and early 20s, and then Lawrence Phillips gets frustrated because you beat him and he goes and gets his car and tries to run you over in the yard. Isn't that a surreal moment?
Yes. And we also have to point this out. And I'm going to say it. And Fred White played Nebraska twice, and he gave his thoughts, and there were rumors galore that Nebraska had a steroid program for players. And doesn't Lawrence Phillips, he exhibited the behavior of somebody that had a roid problem. That's a roid rage, isn't it?
I guess. Psychology degree, or no, you're a psychologist.
So if that's true, and Tom Osborne did know it, is that blood on Osborne's hands?